Namaste and welcome to AIDIA Dialogue. The South Asian region is gaining momentum in economic progress. India and China are fastest growing economy, while Bangladesh too has been achieving remarkable feat in its economic growth. A nation with about 160 million people and a strong middle class, which lies very close to Nepal, can offer a good opportunity for Nepalese businessmen and entrepreneurs in the energy, trade, tourism, culture and many other sectors and vice versa. How Nepal can reap good dividend from the close neighbors' growing market potential? The energy-hungry, fast-growing Bangladesh will be requiring massive power in a few years' time. Can Nepal benefit from it? We will try to unpack these major questions on today's show. For this, I am joined by Her Excellency Mashfee Binte Shams, Ambassador of Bangladesh to Nepal. Your Excellency, welcome to AIDIA Dialogue.
Thank you for inviting me.
We are very much pleased to have you here.
It's a great honor for me to be here also.
To begin with, how do you assess the current relationship between Nepal and Bangladesh?
Our relationship is really excellent. There is simply no way to describe what a wonderful relationship we have.
Our relationship is based on cultural, I guess, linguistic, historical and religious linkage as well. But having said all this beautiful thing, we don't see any high-level meeting here in Nepal from Bangladesh, though we are geographically very close. Your remarks on this?
Not only from Bangladesh to Nepal, but also from Nepal to Bangladesh. There has not been any high-level visits, bilateral visits. I think one of the reasons may be that Nepal was going through a transition and neither side was ready for high-level visits while the political transition was on. Now that there is stability here, we are looking forward to engaging deeper in the political activities. In the meantime, our relationship, the trade and economic and other relationship has been moving forward very satisfactorily.
And do we see any high-level visit to Bangladesh or from Nepal to Bangladesh in your tenure? Any soon?
Let us say both countries are very highly engaged and they have been meeting in the sidelines of many of the multilateral meetings that both the countries have been attending. And our Honorable Prime Minister has come here for the SAARC Summit and the BIMSTEC Summit. So let us see, it would be nice to have high-level visits, of course.
Your Excellency, I see your engagement in a lot of activities related to trade, business and promoting investment. As we all know, modern diplomacy is all about economic diplomacy as well. In the changing global scenario, Nepal has always looked Bangladesh as a potential business partner. How do you see, what are the major areas of cooperation that we need to explore together to enhance trade, investment and so many other things?
The current volume of bilateral trade is so far below the potential. Right now, I think together, taken combined, it would be around $60 million, which is hardly nothing. Our export to Nepal is around $45 million. When you consider that Bangladesh's global export is more than $30 billion. So that means it's, it's almost negligible. And similarly for Nepal also, your exports to many countries together is around $900 million, whereas you're only exporting around $11 million to Bangladesh. So there is much scope to enhance this bilateral trade. And similarly, investment between the two countries is also rather, at present, it's not very significant. There is a major area to, this is one major area where we can focus because, there are many sectors like hydro and tourism sector in Nepal. And whereas in Bangladesh, there are many sectors like in the leather and the ready-made garments and IT, so many areas where Nepal can also invest. So this is one area we need to really explore.
Your Excellency, you just mentioned that both the nation Bangladesh and Nepal are underperforming in enhancing bilateral trade. Can you highlight some of the major reasons that is creating obstacle in enhancing trade between Nepal and Bangladesh?
In my assessment, the first obstacle is the lack of knowledge. You know, the businessmen of neither Bangladesh nor Nepal are very much aware of the potentials. Nepal has been importing from so many countries, you know. You go to the market, you see products from Thailand, Indonesia, everywhere. Argentina, everywhere. You don't see anything from Bangladesh. When I talk to Nepali businessmen, they are not even aware that Bangladesh is producing so many products. Similarly, for Bangladeshi businessmen, they are not really aware of the Nepali opportunities, you know, the opportunities in Nepal that they can actually export. But recently, in the last 3-4 years, Bangladeshi businessmen have been coming here. We have been organizing single country trade fairs with the collaboration of some you know, business people. And they have been coming here and have been making contacts, and as a result many our product exports to Nepal has diversified and our trade to exports to Nepal has increased. So that's one very positive sign. Regarding exports, I am encouraging Nepali business people to explore the huge market of Bangladesh.
So talking about the enhancing bilateral trade between Nepal and Bangladesh and enhancing the volume of trade, a lot of Nepali entrepreneurs and traders argue that to reap maximum benefit from a trade sector, we need to revise trade and transit related agreement with Bangladesh, as Nepal is underperforming in maintaining trade balance with Bangladesh. Your remarks on this?
The trade agreement as such is fine. What we need to do is there could be many more enabling MOUs, or for example standardization, quarantine, SPS, phytosanitary measures. These sort of MOUs and standardization between the different organs of the government, I think that could help to reduce some of the non-tariff barriers or some of the blocks there are. And it could help the exporters and importers of both sides.
And here, Your Excellency, I'd also like to add, in a lot of business-related events, I've heard that the traders and investors, they argue that the tariff imposed by Bangladeshi government to Nepali products are very high in comparison to tariff set by Nepal to Bangladeshi product, and it's causing a huge imbalance in trade. Do you see a thing that way?
You see, the tariffs imposed by Bangladesh are not Nepal specific. They are global. I mean, they are the same for all the countries. It's not, I mean, if somebody from Indonesia or any other country can export to Bangladesh and make a profit, I don't know why the same product, considering the that the distance is so short and the transportation is so easy, I do not really understand why we cannot, I mean, Nepali products cannot be exported to Bangladesh, because the tariff is absolutely the same for all countries. But we do want to facilitate trade exports from Nepal, and for that we have offered Nepal duty-free access to 108 items, and since 2011, at a time when Bangladesh was in trade deficit with Nepal, even at that time we offered duty-free access, and in return we are not asking for duty-free access. We are only asking for preferential trade access for some products. So it is a unilateral offer. And since 2011, you know, both sides have been exchanging lists and considering, and it has somehow not been implemented. And if I feel that if we start implementing it with even a few products, that will definitely have a very positive impact.
What is your opinion why the duty-free access is not implemented by Nepali side?
I'm not saying that it is not being implemented.
Fully implemented.
You see, the list, for example, what we offered initially, Nepal thought that there were not enough export items of export interest. So they took a long time to reconsider the list. And since in exchange we are asking for preferential access for some of our products, I think Nepal needs to think how many of our products they can actually give this access to. So this is taking a long time, but it is, I think it should be expedited.
And also many traders argue that they need to submit more than 78 documents. Exporting has become very, very tough, whereas to import goods from Bangladesh to Nepal, it's very easy. This is also a huge concern from Nepali side. How do you want to respond to this?
Again, this is not a Nepal specific requirement. I'm not very sure exactly if you need 78 documents to be submitted. This has been, they have been talking about it very recently. Earlier they did not talk about it. So again, to facilitate the business, what Bangladesh has proposed is that to set up a joint working group of customs officials, because it is actually the customs who are the window for the exporter and importer to interact with. And you know, very happily, the first meeting of the customs official took place in Kathmandu last December, and they will be meeting regularly, and they will be working towards harmonizing and standardizing of these customs documents and all other customs related issues, so that the traders do not face these hassles anymore. And these requirements, I would like to underscore again, are not Nepal specific. These are standards for everybody.
And Your Excellency, when we see the statistics, we have a very, very huge trade deficit, not just to Bangladesh, almost to every nation in the world. Don't you think here special preference should be given to Nepal to enhance its export?
Yeah, that is why we are offering duty-free access to Nepali products. That would definitely give, you know, allow Nepal to export to Bangladesh.
And Your Excellency, recently Nepal and Bangladesh have signed double tax avoidance agreement, DTAA. How do you see this reformed tax arrangement and its impact on promoting trade and investment? Do you see this working?
Actually, all these agreements, you know, things like DTAA and then BIPA or bilateral investment promotion or agreement, and then also the trade agreement, basic trade agreement. These are mechanisms or instruments which encourage, these are the basic documents which are needed for countries to do trade with each other. So happily we have a trade agreement, and this double taxation agreement is there, and hopefully in the future we will be also working out on a investment promotion agreement or investment promotion and protection agreement, and these create a conducive environment among the business people.
Your Excellency, we just discussed that the volume of export is very negligible from Nepal to Bangladesh, while we are importing almost everything from all over the world, including Bangladesh. Here, electricity can act as a game changer. We often hear that. It is viable and possible for Nepal to supply electricity to Bangladesh. Do you see electricity as potential export sector?
Of course, you know, Bangladesh is a very fast growing economy. It's growing, as I said, more than 8%, and to meet the demand of this growing economy, we will be requiring huge amounts of electricity. It's estimated that
9,000 meg.
Yeah, by 2041 our requirement will be more than 30,000 megawatt. And even though we are right now investing in a lot of power plants in Bangladesh, and our current generating capacity is more than 21,000 megawatt, but to meet the requirement we will need to import, and Nepal can, with its huge potential in the hydro sector, Nepal is very happily placed to supply the electricity to Bangladesh.
So Bangladesh has already agreed to purchase 500 megawatt of electricity from Nepal, and to meet the domestic demand, I learned that Bangladesh has a plan to import around 9,000 megawatt from Nepal in recent future. How do you see this emerging energy cooperation between Nepal and Bangladesh going? We hear a lot of hindrance and obstacle as well in the energy trade.
Right now, we have not had any agreement about purchase. Bangladesh is, we have just started talking about it. We signed the MOU on energy sector cooperation only last August. And the Secretaries of Energy and Power of the two countries have just started talking about all the technicalities and the potentials and the difficulties and everything. We have set up technical teams who will look into the issues of transmission, who will also look into the issues of generation, power generation, and there is also a joint working group at the level of joint secretaries. So I think with all the officials working very sincerely, we will be able to work out mechanisms for export of electricity from Nepal to Bangladesh. And I think if you are talking, of course, with because we have to have some sort of access via India. So I think they are initially thinking about using the Indian grid, for which we will be happy to pay whatever is required, wheeling charges or whatever. But these are very technical issues, and they are still talking about it. And I think down the line we will work out some sort of mechanism.
And recently, I think last month, Nepal and Bangladesh agreed to use the Indian transmission lines in the Siliguri corridor for power trading. How do you want to acknowledge the cooperation of India for this? And could you also tell us more about the plan for developing a dedicated line for energy trade in the near future?
Of course, it will be needed eventually, I think, because there is so much electricity going to be transmitted. So I suppose eventually a dedicated line will be required. But I think it's still too early to even talk about it, because in the first place, Nepal has to become self-sufficient in electricity, and then in the second place, you actually have to decide whether you want to export the electricity or not. And once that is done, then I think all these other technicalities can be worked out.
And here, how do you observe the imperative of sub-regional framework like BVIN to promote the economic integration for this region? And there is a backdrop of stalled connectivity initiative under SAARC. We cannot forget that.
The countries of the region or sub-region have no choice but to cooperate with each other. We share common rivers, we share a common ecosystem, we share environmental concerns, we have similarities of challenges of access to the global market, we have similar issues of migration. So there is no way that we cannot cooperate. We have to cooperate for our own survival. And it is in this context that, of course, SAARC, BIMSTEC, and if you take a look at it in a smaller context, then the sub-region of BVIN comes into effect.
Nepal and Bangladesh had trade transit treaty in 1970s, which allows Nepal to use Mongla and Chittagong port of Bangladesh, but this port is not utilized by Nepal. Tell us something more. What are the ongoing port development and connecting infrastructure project, and how Nepal-Bangladesh should work on it to materialize a grid connectivity project in near future?
I think the ports of Chittagong and Mongla are not being used by Nepal, is that we don't have a connectivity arrangement for the buses or trucks from Nepal to move all the way up to our ports. Or the other way also, our trucks and buses cannot also come to Nepal. So if we have some sort of arrangement in place for that, I think it will facilitate the use of our ports for Nepal's transit. We also have a rail agreement in place that can also be used without any, that is ready to be used.
And Your Excellency, talking about road connectivity, in April 23rd and 24th, there was a trial bus service from Dhaka to Kathmandu, Nepal under the BVIN motor vehicle agreement, where Indian, Nepalese and Bangladeshi government official traveled and initiated the trilateral bus service. But since then, there is no progress in that
yes,
route.
It's a bit disappointing.
Why is that?
It's a bit disappointing. We are really hopeful that it will be operationalized very soon. We have been talking about it for a long time, and I think once the bus service or the cargo truck service is implemented, especially the bus, it will really boost the tourism between our two countries.
Absolutely. Why this initiation has not moved forward?
I think initially there was an issue about Bhutan having some reservations, and so their upper house did not ratify the agreement.
Talking more about connectivity, geographically Nepal and Bangladesh are separated by Siliguri corridor of Indian territory, and a lot of time we hear that if that territory can be used by Nepal, we can reap huge amount of benefit. What should Nepal and Bangladesh do to take the confidence of India to promote connectivity from this corridor, as there are some security concerns from Indian side?
The feedback that I get is that the corridor is now very well available for use by Nepal and Bangladesh. Currently, the Nepali trucks are going from Kakarvita all the way up to our land port, Banglabandha. They are carrying the Nepali products and they are depositing it in our warehouse. And there are no restrictions right now. Initially, maybe there could have been some security arrangements or convoy, there needed a convoy or something. But right now, there is nothing. The corridor is fully accessible at present.
And recently, Nepal held investment summit. As we all are aware, Nepal is seeking huge amount of FDI to meet the economic goal, the aggressive economic goal set by our Prime Minister. Can you tell us what are the areas that are suitable for investors from Bangladesh to Nepal? I believe Bangladesh has recently started making investment in foreign nation as well.
Well, in the first place, Bangladesh has already offered to invest in the hydro sector of Nepal. Our minister has announced that we are ready to invest $1 billion, up to $1 billion here. And then our private sector is also very interested. So hydro is definitely one very good sector. Then tourism is another area where I think you could be encouraging investors from Bangladesh. And also I think agro, food processing and agro could be another area where you could invite investors from Bangladesh, because we have made good progress in that area. And we could, I think there are people capable of investing in that area.
I learned that you've traveled most of the industrial sector of Nepal, industrial cities of Nepal, to promote trade and investment. How do you observe the economy of Nepal as a foreign diplomat?
I think there's a lot of potential. And yes, you're right. I have traveled more or less very thoroughly across Nepal. And there is a lot of willingness also. And I think people are just waiting for the right investor or the right opportunity to come along, and they would be very happy to go ahead with business and trade and investment.
And one thing that always strikes my mind is Bangladesh has established a pilgrimage in Lumbini, and Bangladesh will be the first Muslim country to do so. What is the motivation behind that? Can you tell us more about this initiation?
According to our constitution, we are a secular country. It's a multi-religious country where every religion enjoys equal opportunities. And for Buddhism, we have a very ancient Buddhist heritage in Bangladesh, especially from the 7th to 11th centuries. When Buddhism had almost died out in this subcontinent, Buddhism was flourishing in Bangladesh under the Pala dynasty. You must have heard of our Paharpur and Mahastangar. These are old flourishing, they were flourishing centers of Buddhism in Bengal. And so we want to carry on with that tradition, and that is why we feel it is very important that we should also be represented in the international monastic zone of Lumbini, and we should have our own Buddhist monastery there.
Nepal has become a home for a lot of Bhutanese refugees, and Bangladesh has become a home for many Rohingyas refugees from Myanmar. How Bangladesh is going to adjust country's political and economic situation in coming days? A lot of people are very curious to know about this.
We are currently hosting more than 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. We feel that they should be going back to their homeland, because after all Myanmar is their homeland, and we are in discussion with the Myanmar authorities so that there can be a conducive environment for the refugees to return in a safe and dignified manner. It is actually a huge burden on Bangladesh to be hosting more than 1 million people, but our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, has said that if they come to us for safety, we will give them sanctuary for however long it is needed, and in return we do not ask for anything.
And finally, Your Excellency, to conclude our conversation, we see a lot of push and pull politics in the regional sector, regional power politics. Can you briefly share that what are the core foreign policy priority and direction of Bangladesh, and how Bangladesh is managing its relationship with two powerhouse, India and China?
The core foreign policy, from Bangladesh is that it is our Bangabandhu, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu, enunciated it in 1972, and it's enshrined in our constitution that it's friendship to all and malice to none. And then beyond that, it is, first of all, we want to focus on our region in the and by region we mean South Asia, because we feel that the neighbors are our most important partners. And then of course we will be guided by our national interest, and for economic development we will be focusing for major partners who can cooperate in economic development. This year Bangladesh has attracted more than $3 billion of foreign investment from many countries, including China, India, Japan, and many countries of the world. And actually balancing between India and China is not an issue for Bangladesh, because we feel that relationship with one country should not be at the expense of other, and we can have a comfortable relationship with all countries of the world.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for your insight, thought, and thank you for your time. We are very pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much. It was really very interesting to talk to you. Thank you.